Hello there. Good morning. So, I'm going to speak of some awareness that's been coming up for me this last little while. I don't have ears here. This looks weird. It's around how much I was in, what's the right word, trance or acceptance of a program outside myself that didn't serve me. It served something bigger, something outside myself, what I call the system, or you could call it the matrix, you could call it the program, you could call it whatever you want. But from my experience, and this may be the same for you, I was lulled into a program from birth, from my parents who were in that same program, and the whole system, everything from a religion, government, schooling, the way my friends talked, etc., made me believe that something outside myself was reality. Now let that sit for a second. Is your reality defined by programs, software, systems outside of ourselves? And then look deeply inside and look at that system. So that system is filled with news, television, commercials, institutions that we have to devote our time to, like a church or going to school and getting, the word comes in, systemized. Isn't that what school does to us? It tells us a certain level of knowledge and how things should be done and how this reality works. You can call that science, you can call that religion, you can call that whatever. Same with religion. It does a kind of a mind fuck on our mind. It basically gives us rules that keep us from being ourselves. You shall not swear, you shall not commit adultery, you shall not harm your neighbor, or other things. Some of those things are mixed up in good. You don't want to harm other people, but it also limits us in a way. And then it calls us a sinner for doing those things, which are part of the human experience. And then we're kind of locked in shame, guilt, or that I'm bad, or if you look really deeply underneath all of the systems that we have, we are being contained from being our fullest possible self. So this is where I get into the awareness of, and we got to be really careful here because the word control is coming up, but I do steer my life, and the way of the word control is more about driving and not accepting what may show up. So I can't control anything. I can control the vehicle, I can keep it between the lines, I can control what I eat or what I do, but anything outside of myself, I can't control another person. I can't create and force them to be something that I want them to be without telling them, or in general, anything with force is not accepted. So it turns into a acceptance of the system that I'm in and a gradual awareness that some of the things in the system and some of the beliefs that I've carried aren't serving me. So the belief that I have to have a full-time job, 9 to 5, to be able to survive and to pay my bills and have enough food in my fridge and all that kind of stuff is bullshit. To believe that debt is something that's okay and somebody can charge me 19% interest on, etc., 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 is bullshit. And it's just a basically programming you to buy something before you have the money or the ability to have it, and then somebody profits off of your lack of willpower or need to buy that or other things, and they make delirious amounts of money. You got to think of these banks and these organizations that 20% interest is should be illegal. It should be, it basically puts somebody under the slavery of debt, of trying to meet these bills and pay somebody for some money that they bought a while back or whatever, and it's bullshit. It's demonic when you really look at it. So I want to suggest you look at your life and what beliefs aren't serving you. What are the things that you do every day to please somebody else or meet some expectation or meet survival? And why do you do those things? I have no choice. I got to go to a job and I got to make some money and I got to do all this kind of stuff. Well, I'll tell you, I had a magnificent awakening on all this kind of stuff. Throughout COVID, my business was destroyed. So my job disappeared. And it hurt a lot and it felt uncomfortable and all these things. But it's freed me because I stepped out of that and then I didn't know what to do. It's like I spent my whole life creating this business and then this virus destroyed it. It basically said I couldn't go to people's places unless I had some thing injected in my body, which I refused. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh, I'm not compliant in the system and I'm now errant. ERRANT, the errant program, or the program that's outside the system that can no longer be contained. And it smashed me. It made me look at every one of my beliefs about money and about survival and other things. And, it did a whole bunch of other stuff. It basically made me survive on credit cards and go into debt and massive things that basically tried to steal my power. And I learned some things. If you don't have assets, nobody can come after you for money that you don't have. They can try and call you and pester you and other things. And it's become a huge industry of people that try and pester people into paying debts. And debts that got enormously huge. In a lot of cases, the debts that I carried, I paid off 3 times over and just was paying on time and had no other choice, and then got to the point where I couldn't pay sometimes, and they became angry and evil, and women phone me up purposely because I'm a man to use my mother wounds and all this kind of stuff to tell me how bad I was and how I wasn't meeting my obligations and other stuff. Well, I was meeting my minimums at the time, and I basically saw the demon or the devil that was underneath all this greed trying to attack me for not being compliant when I was still compliant. So eventually it led to the point where I didn't need to be compliant anymore, because agreement to 20% interest rates and all these fees and all this kind of stuff was only me agreeing because I felt obligated to meet this expectation. I only feel obligated to repay the amount and maybe a reasonable amount of interest for that stuff. It's not that I'm running away from it or do not believe that. I had some responsibility, but the whole system crushed me. The whole system created events that forced me to no longer be able to pay. So is that my fault? No, the system did it. So you may see evidence of this in your life. And if you don't, that's fine. Just keep your eyes open and you'll start to see. But as time went on, I started to see all these beliefs and all these outward events that basically forced me into taking my reality back. And then you're like, well, what's reality and why did this happen? Well, your reality back, you are a creator. You are what we don't understand typically, or have never been taught, is our brain is a projector. So what we believe about our reality will create our reality. So my reality is mine, your reality is yours, and we have this thing called collective reality that kind of allows us to interface and say that they're common or they're aligned. So simple things like, my mother taught me the color red is the color of a stoplight or a stop sign. But if somebody said to you and said, oh, the color green is the color of a stop sign and a stoplight, what would happen? Well, you would believe that, and all the definitions of the color green, like go through a stop or through a light, and all this kind of stuff, there'd be a big cataclysm because people would be thinking a red light means green, and then they'd be crashing through the intersection and people would get harmed. So the collective reality is a bunch of common beliefs, common programming, common software, common expectations for us to align together and to be able to connect and have an experience together. So my reality overlaps with your reality in collective reality, but there's a whole bunch in collective reality that's been twisted to allow control. Oh, I must follow the requirements of my government. I must follow whatever my boss says. Even if that boss may be abusive or taking advantage. I just been in a situation where a wonderful boss and all this kind of stuff, but there was so much undiscussed in how we were connecting together. It made me feel really uncomfortable, and it made him feel really uncomfortable, and he read between the lines thinking that I was asking, what day am I working today, or am I working tomorrow, or whatever. He thought I was looking for more work, but I wasn't actually looking for more work, but I made a commitment to be with him whenever he needed me, but I hadn't set the terms of that. I need a day's notice. I need to be able to live my life, and I'll be an occasional worker or whatever, but just give me a day's notice or whatever, and say, hey, by the way, I'm going to need you tomorrow. I'm starting a project, and I'll need you for 3 or 4 days. But none of that had ever been discussed. So was anybody wrong or whatever? But we were all nice people and trying to meet expectations of each other. But if those aren't stated, then really it's just a big black hole. So as I've explored my reality and started to step out of some of the programs of the reality, I'm starting to find some really beautiful things that the beliefs of reality and other things and the expectations of serving a boss and having a job and all this kind of stuff are part of the program. And to step out of that program, all I needed was to have a direct conversation and no longer rely on obligation or expectation of what these things are. So after I lost my business, I survived off of some of my pension funds for a while I kind of did this inner work. And then that money started to run dry, and I had this feeling inside of me that everything was going to work out. I could have been like, oh, fuck, I need a job and I got to go do this. I didn't even have to look for the job. The work showed up. I just trusted that something would show up that would help me pay the bills. And it was magical because this person, who's a friend of mine, was in a clinch, and he needed somebody that had my skill set to be able to, and it's a high value skill set. So I'm not getting paid like $20 an hour or whatever. I'm getting paid $60 an hour for work that is very challenging. It's technical, and I'm an engineer, and you have to solve problems on the fly, and you have to, basically it's putting in building control systems and entry systems. So this wire goes to here, and here's a bundle of 8 wires, and where do they all go? And how do you make sure that the green wire on one side goes to the green wire on the other side, and they all line up so that when you power up the system, all of a sudden the the door strike works and the badge reader works, and then the thing we call a request to exit. Sometimes you'll see this thing that turns colors up above your head that's like a motion detector that basically opens the door so you can exit as you're on your way out. So this is really complicated work. You have to look at a bundle of wires. One cable has 8 wires in it. Where does these go? And you have to strip the wires and you have to connect them, and you have to know what you're doing. And then sometimes you need things like diodes and other things to make sure that the system's protected and it doesn't cause any problems. And it's like a orchestra of different variables that you all put together. And then if you've done your job right, when you badge read that door and run your badge over it, you'll hear a click and the door will open. But if any of 100 different variables do not work, then that door will not open. And then the client won't pay you because they don't have a service that's adding them. But if I've done all that right and orchestrated all the bits and all this kind of stuff, then the person that lives in that building, all they do is they walk up to the door and they swipe their badge and it goes click and they exit and it's great. And then the building landlord now knows who badged in at what time, and if there's video cameras and other things in place and request to exit symbols or whatever, they have an awareness of the safety of the building, that nobody's being allowed in, etc. But the coolness of going down to these levels, at least for me, is it's taken me 30 years plus of experiences as an engineer, of doing installations, etc., to be able to confidently do this. And this man that I'm working with tried to get people right out of school, and it was just too mentally taxing for someone else. So literally my need was put into the universe and his need was put into the universe, and the universe joined us together, and it's made this amazing thing. He says he's so grateful that I'm there, and it takes half the time to do stuff, and there's far less mistakes and all this kind of stuff, which I love. And I love being respected for what I can do. I love being of service to people. I love talking to the clients at these sites. So by taking back my reality from, I just got to have a worthless, time-consuming job with a boss I hate and all this kind of stuff, which is maybe the program I've had from the past, it turned into a partnership of two people and amazingness. And I'm making more than enough money in a month, or in a week's worth of work, to pay all my bills in a month, which is fantastic. So it gives me some time. And now we're in the middle of negotiating, trying to give me more time to spend in my own life. And I don't want to be at a beck and call, but give me a day or two's notice and I'll be there. And if there's emergency stuff, let me know, and I'll more than likely be able to service it right then and there. But I may have some hiccups in my life. I want to plan my life. I don't want to kind of put my whole life on hold just waiting for work, which is the old program. So by talking about it, it's come clear and things are changing. And there's a beauty in that. And this is what taking our reality back is. Start to become aware that what my desires are possible. And all the old programs, all the old software, all the old experiences are no longer serving me. So I put them in the trash compactor, literally. I just say that no longer serves. I end this experience. And it's changing things. And I'm so different from the system sometimes it pisses people off, or it confuses them, or scares them. So they'll try and attack. They'll try and put me down, shame me, tell me my way is the wrong way. And it's had a bunch of experiences, but I'm more and more starting to recognize that this is the natural evolution. This is awakening. This is us taking our reality back from a system of control. And I don't need the system of control anymore. I don't need the system to mollycoddle me or take my personal choice away. I need to wander in this system and choose my own choices. And that's not control. It's a system and me interacting, me and other people interacting. I could go in so deep, but I want to keep this simple. So what I'll say is the things that you love are still there. And what if your work and you could get paid for them and all this was all together as a possibility? So I'm just saying, start to ask for what you want. I was in my mind saying I needed a job. I need money to pay the bills or whatever. And now work that is physically satisfying is showing up. And in partnership with somebody that needed it, that has more work than they can possibly handle, has business coming in, and I'm not causing them any grief. I'm actually taking some stress off them by assisting. So this thing came out of my trust that something wonderful would come out of it. That's taking our reality back. That's taking it away from the system, taking it away from the old system. It's now a system where I don't have a demanding boss or whatever. I have somebody that I can trust, I can partner with, and I can make money while he makes money. And that's powerful. And this is happening everywhere in our life. Look at it in your relationships too. I'll talk about that in another video, but really making deep connections with people. I sat with a woman yesterday, first time we've sat down and talked. Once again, another 5.5 hour conversation, and she was so honored by that discussion. She had tears several times. I even had tears, and then she opened and was vulnerable, and I was so grateful. How does that happen unless you put your life in service and to be a space holder, to be someone that can recognize the pain and suffering of another person, just hear them and witness them and allow them to speak and it to come out and the emotion to come out. That's another side of me. So these things are happening. All because I've opened to reality. I've opened to a new way. I've changed my perspective and I'm different. And my reality and my world's changing to go with that. So I love you all. This has drawn on a little longer than I planned, but thank you for listening. This is really important knowledge and awareness. And once you have awareness as truth for you, you start to be in a version of choice, and call it control a little bit, but you still don't control all the variables, but it's steering in your life to something that may be more in alignment and more beautiful. So anyways, I hope this helps, and you have a great day. Thank you.